Tell you that this looks easy, but the infrastructure that Mark has put together, his vision, his strategy, and his execution, and his passion, first and foremost, it really comes through. So I want to thank you, Mark, for letting this happen for all of us in the enterprise sales groups across the States and abroad. So thank you so much. I guess we're ready. I think what time do we have here? My two great speakers. I am so happy to have both of you. Jessica is a sales coach and Chris is a CEO, one CTO. So what I'd like to do to get started is introduce yourselves to the group and tell us how you got into sales, and then give us a little unknown fact that nobody knows about you.
Okay. So I'm Jessica Magooch, CEO. Is this even on? I don't think it matters. That would be the power. Check one. This is the sound check. All right. So I'm Jessica Magooch. I'm CEO of JPM Sales Partners. My sales story is I was born 38 years ago yesterday. And when I came out of the room, I was like, I want to be a salesperson! It was my childhood dream to be a salesperson. Totally, no, that's so not true. That is a lie. So I actually wanted to be an actor growing up, actress. Yeah, same thing, seriously. My dad was a national sales trainer. He built sales teams of 1,000 people nationwide. So I was 8 years old, taking the phone calls back before they had CRMs and you could run reports. Salespeople would actually have to call their sales managers and tell them how much business they wrote. And often I would be the one answering the phone because this was also before people actually had two separate business and home lines. Like that didn't happen either.
They were calling from the road.
This is like, yeah. And at 8 years old, I'd be like, $20,000? That's not very much, is it? Dad, Joe only did 20 this week. So that was, I grew up in sales, but I swore I would never do it. I hated it. It was, Dad, I'm not doing sales. It's not me. I want to be an actor. I went to NYU for acting. I actually have a degree in that. Worked at the UN, was a yoga teacher, and finally got sucked into sales because my dad was building a new sales team for a startup in New York, and he offered me free housing in Manhattan if I would be his sales assistant. And so I said yes, so I could continue to audition and stuff. And the acting wasn't going so great, but the sales was. So I continued along that path and became a full-time sales rep for them. And that's really where I grew up in sales. Started, got into sales, was a salesperson, then a sales trainer, then a sales manager, then the VP of sales at that startup, which later got acquired. So I was there for like 6 years and kind of went through the ranks. And only way I could do it was because it was a mission-driven company, and I had to learn that sales wasn't about manipulating and lying to people to get them to buy stuff that they don't need, but rather it is about helping people and doing the right thing. So once you get that down, the sales part is all mostly technical from there. And now I run JPM Sales Partners, which helps startups create their sales playbooks. And I also have an online school that's a DIY version of what I do for coaching, which is help people build their sales playbooks, which also then in turn trains their salespeople. I have to also say that I just accepted a role with a tech startup out of the UK called Commission Crowd as their global director of agent recruitment and success. So it's an online platform that matches commission-only salespeople with companies that are looking to hire commission-only salespeople. So they'll be incorporating JPM's training and all that too. So that's how I got into sales. And
awesome.
Yeah, kicking and screaming, but I'm happy about it now.
Thank you.
Wasn't there a question that you didn't want anyone to know or that no one knows about?
Well-known
or something
fact.
like that?
Got me.
Cheers.
Got me.
Well-known fact. Jessica.
Well, like Taco Bell.
Oh!
I do.
Take a run to the board.
It's probably the first time I admitted it in public, because pretty much people know everything about me. I'm always promoting what I'm doing, like band and all stuff. But I do enjoy being burrito at Taco Bell.
Okay. All right, take a run to the border. Thank you. Top that, Chris. I don't know how you're going to
It's not the fanciest taco.
I will try.
But, you know.
So I'm Chris Serra. I'm the CEO of Arco Technologies. We are a digital product design and development company. We focus on the healthcare and financial sector. Our mission is to build products people love. We're in Old City. We're about 40 people. And we do three things. We do product management and strategy, which is a form of management consulting. We do design and user experience. And the third thing we do is software engineering, where we make it all work. And I got into the first sales job I ever had, and this is my little known fact too. My dad is actually a Philly retail entrepreneur and a role model for me in many ways. But he had retail shoe stores. One was in 20th and Sansom, probably the closest to here. He had one in the Gallery and some others. And people were coming into his store and asking to ship them to prisons. So buying shoes and then shipping them to prisons. And so he had this idea that he was going to just try to market these shoes to prisoners, and he brought on his son, who I think I was probably 15 or so at the time, to help him do that. And he had created kind of a mail order cabinet, Ronald Phillip Limited, and there was a direct mail unit that I was running. I would get home from my high school, and then we had the 2 lines in the house, like you mentioned. So we had an 800 number that rang for only 3 hours a day, because then I had dinner after that. I was in my early teens. I can't remember exactly how old, but that was really kind of the first sales and customer service job that I had. And also one of the most random jobs, because my customers were people that were incarcerated. So that was kind of an interesting sidebar to it all too. Had some other odd jobs. I worked at a banana factory, and some other interesting. I worked in restaurants most of my life. I worked in services most of my life in some form or fashion, mostly part-time. Now, Arco is a services company, but I've always been a very service-focused person. So I went to college. I went to Drexel for computer science. Got a bachelor's, worked in a research lab, and had an awesome advisor who had agreed to basically give me free tuition to get my graduate degree, so I got a master's in computer science. I worked at GlaxoSmithKline. I worked in drug discovery and wrote chemical software for a number of years. Then I got a job at Traffic.com. Actually, I worked at Drexel for a little while doing research. Then I got a job at Traffic.com, which was my first kind of job after college, so to speak. And I was, the person that worked in a corner. I was writing software code, and you only saw me when I had a break. And other than that, I was just in my corner doing my thing, building software systems and whatnot. And it's funny, even then I worked. Traffic.com is a media company, so they had all these advertising and sales guys, and it's funny because I had, they put all the developers in this one. They were growing, and they had all the developers literally right next to the sales guys. So you had these ad sales guys just banging away on phones all day while we're trying to write our code and everything else. And I just remember so much of like the engineering culture is like so anti-sales and whatnot. And I always kind of think of like my dad as being like a sales guy, like I think very respectable individual, lots of integrity, good dude. And I felt like so many people had kind of a bad rap for it. But I've always felt sales is a profession and a respectable thing. And so anyway, then after Traffic, I wanted to work at smaller and smaller companies. I worked at a company called Draconis, and then which was a startup. Then I co-founded another company called ViewsIt, which did document management systems, and I raised venture money here locally. I've had 12 investors, which is insane. I would never recommend that to anyone. And sold the company. It wasn't anything to write home about, although I did make money for most of my shareholders. And that was kind of where I learned everything about sales. So the CTO to CEO thing sort of happened in that time period. And
you're actually going into the question, which was, share your journey with us, from how you went from being technical into a sales-centric CEO.
Yep. So I think a lot of people in an engineering field, especially in software development, if you have experience, you've worked several years in the industry, you've all worked for products that really sucked. Or just things that were just that
we sold those products.
Yeah, right. So where the market didn't adopt them, they didn't have product market fit is the cliche way to saying that today. I feel like over time I've realized that part of my own just wanting to control my own destiny and sort of the businesses that I was in, I really had to become more on the sales side. And so just career-wise for me, it happened very slowly and almost in sort of a state of denial up until even a few years ago. Even with ArcWeb, when I started it 6 years ago, I used CTO as my job title for the first 3 years, and it wasn't until I had almost 14 or 15 people. And one of the people that we hired, and I wasn't interviewing, and everybody at that point said, "Who's the CEO of ArcWeb?" Like literally thought that there was some other person in a room that was the CEO of the company. And I had a bunch of
behind the curtain.
Yeah, I had a bunch of other managers. Yeah, the managers of the company all were like, "All right, ArcWeb needs a CEO, and you like own up to this CEO thing." So there's been a few sort of stages. So if I look back at Music, so that was 2011. I was about 28. I'm now 38. So it's been close to 10 years from now as I've been sort of transitioning. The first point that I didn't really notice that I needed to be in sales was selling stock in my company. So if you were an engineer and kind of inspired by this person named Paul Graham, who is a Y Combinator founder and an investor, he inspired many engineers. He's inspired many engineers to like quit their job and just start a company and don't worry about the business, and it all sort of happened. So I was very inspired by that, and just did that. I quit my job and started coding, and for years and years and years I was coding stuff that we ultimately weren't selling, but we were pre-revenue. We decided, just like Paul Graham sort of told us, you need to raise money. So there I was now selling stock in my company, not even necessarily realizing that now I'm in sales too, even more so. And so that was kind of the first transition. And we brought on a sales coach, Scott Messer from Sales Evolution, who is here. Scott, who's awesome and a very process-driven person. To help us, and we hired Scott because we thought we needed help with sales and didn't even realize that it would actually help with the capital raise. Capital raise happened, and then we got past sort of like that first funding block where people sort of relax and say, "Woohoo, we made it!" Press release goes out, high five. You're now in the venture community, which or you're now a venture-backed company or whatever, which is sort of a highlight. But in some ways, I don't look at those as celebrations anymore when I see them for other people. I'm always sort of cautious and I'm very careful when it comes to raising capital. But so that was the first point. Then the second was companies struggling, and we're really disagreeing about what to build. And having your own business, the hardest thing is like, what do I do when I wake up in the morning? Like, what do I work on today? What do I work on tomorrow? And like, you're always second guessing yourself. And when you have 3 founders and like 12 investors, you're really second guessing if you raise pre-revenue and you reach the end of your money and you actually don't have enough money to pay everybody that works there and everything else. So we kind of had this challenge sort of strategically. We were disagreeing about what to do with the business. And we kind of had this challenge to each other to say, well, whoever sells the next thing, that's what we're all going to build. Because we had 3 coders, we could build all kinds of stuff. I was like, well, whoever sells this is what we're building. So that was kind of like the second point. So then I felt like very empowered, like, all right, woohoo. So doing sales calls, coaching calls and all that stuff. And had some traction with it. Third stage was when we hired an investment banker and then we're trying to sell the company. So I actually got to pitch Google and Amazon, and that was awesome. And I was CTO, and at the time my co-founder Brent allowed me as CTO to actually run the whole banker process. So I was pitching all the corporate dev people and whatnot. And that was the third transition sort of like point. And then the fourth was when I started ArcWeb, and I realized like, yeah, I really do need to just be the head of sales. And even if I wasn't comfortable calling myself that yet, and still even this talk and like that subject line, it all makes me very nervous. But that was sort of like the main transition, becoming CEO. Because really, as CEO, you are the head of sales, and it's part of the game. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that there's a competency that people have when I think they're in sales. Everybody thinks that sales people are naturally kind of demonstrative. They're out there. They're extroverts, and so. I think what I really appreciated about your story is that you had the self-awareness to say, there's some things that I need to do around selling vision throughout the company life cycle, as well as the customer and the product life cycle. So I love the idea that you had that aha moment? What was the moment that you realized, I need to go get some sales coaching?
It was a friend, it was another CEO of a pre-revenue internet startup who had made the recommendation that there's coaches out there that you can hire, and they work with people like you that don't know anything, and that was great. And then I got another referral also to Scott from Will Reynolds from Sierra Interactive, and I've always looked to Will as sort of a role model and a mentor. So I was very jazzed by working with the same person that Will worked with at the time. So that was it. And it's for a pre-revenue company and a person that's not really paying themselves, or just burning, or not paying themselves, paying zero and just burning everything that they have. Even spending any amount of money a month is like such a huge consideration. But for me, it really was life-changing on so many levels to learn how to the scientific part of sales that is learnable by anybody.
Did you notice something that was happening in the sales communications with your clients in that process? Like, did you have your aha moment while you were talking to someone and maybe say, "Oh, I'm not tapping into vision here"? Like, something didn't just connect with that client. Was there anything, that kind of aha moment for you? Or was it just really...
So my company had such product market fit issues, as you would say. Like, I felt like my job was so hard. I was selling something that no one wanted, barely existed in the market, and had some mild success. So I wouldn't say I had any aha moments in my Abuse It phase, honestly. And I hadn't even really recognized how much I had really even learned until I started ArcLab. But that's good training. Try to sell something almost unsellable, and you will learn a lot. But actually, so
where do I sign up?
we had a recurring revenue business, which people call it the SaaS Valley of Death. It takes a lot of investment to build it, and we had 200 customers, but only a little bit over 100 grand in recurring revenue a year, which is like nothing. And we started off with the $20 a month plans, as you can imagine, which you need tens of thousands of customers just to pay 3 engineer market salaries, and this was 8 years ago. So terrible model on so many levels, but I met so many awesome people through the experience. So
now you have 4 reps, right? Working for you?
No. Goal for this year is to get to 4.
Okay, goal is to get to 4. Well, what are you doing differently in selling the vision with those 4 reps? What have you taken from your coaching and incorporated into the dialogue that your reps are having with customers around selling the vision?
So we do custom application development, and so a lot of what we help entrepreneurs do, they're trying to disrupt the market, and that is all vision. So everything that we're selling is vision to them, but ultimately we're trying to sort of co-opt their vision and help them be successful. So part of the vision sell, and to some degree, we in services, a lot of us sell vapor. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist until you actually deliver it. So I'd say it's all vision. It's all vision, and trying to get it. Understanding the person that's buying it and what their objective is for the year, what your 27, it's amazing to me. I ask people this all the time, what their objective is for the year. And a lot of people say, none of my other vendors ask me that. It's like, that's really what, is on people's mind. How am I going to, because a lot of stuff people buy from us, they're going to lose their job if the project doesn't work. So it's, high intensity, and it's very trust oriented. But anyway, sorry.
No, that's fine. Question. I mean, Rick Page says, everybody here knows that hope is not a strategy, right? So he says everybody in the sales organization, everybody in the organization is in sales. Everybody. We're all salespeople. Anybody who's interfacing with a customer, I don't care if you're in support, you're always in a sales situation. Do you kind of incorporate that into your processes?
So from a recruiting perspective, we do have one sort of bucket, which is would they be a good consultant? And that ultimately means, would they be good? Are they good on the sales side? So I definitely like to see people, like me, I was a waiter, I was a busboy, I've worked in all kinds of service roles, so even if it was any kind of service role that you can imagine, that's something that I look for on a resume, and a lot of times, at this stage, and now actually hiring older account execs, they're not going to list that they were a golf caddy somewhere, but it's actually a very important thing if you say please, thank you, and, you know, how are you doing, and actually care about people. So anyway,
I did that too.
From a recruiting perspective, I would say it's there, and it's almost an expectation. But again, we're kind of consultants, so I'm interested to hear what you've seen.
Yeah, I wanted to. So my role here today is kind of to like dissect what Chris was doing as he explains his journey and kind of dissect it into like sales training talk. So 2 words that you used were trust and vision. And so I kind of want to break it down, at least from my perspective, how I see like what that really means in the sales process, because it's easy to say like you just have to build trust and rapport with the client. You have to just show them the vision, but understanding like why and breaking it down and how you do those things, which like when you get to sales training or management, you have to do that to be able to teach other people how to do it, right? Which is why some people don't make the transition so well from sales to sales management, because you can be a great salesperson without knowing why you're a great salesperson, but then to be a great trainer and a great leader, you have to go back and dissect it and say, okay, why? What did I do? So you can train your reps then to do, to follow you. So to dissect what trust and vision mean, and we'll get into emotional intelligence now. So the study of emotional intelligence tells us, well, it has finally proven to us what salespeople knew all along, which is that people make decisions first emotionally and back them up with logic. So I'll repeat that because it's really important. It's like the foundation of sales. People make decisions first emotionally and back them up with logic.
You got that, Mark?
People make decisions emotionally and back them up with logic. Okay. Can I get a beatbox? And since we are at the Enterprise Sales Forum, I must clarify that just because you're selling to a company does not mean that this isn't true, because companies are made up of people, right? So no matter how big the company is, it always comes down to people making the decision. The company doesn't make any decisions. And in fact, I think there's a stat that even the largest companies, it comes down to a max of 12 people involved in the decision-making process. So, the study of emotional intelligence proves that, because if you look at the brain and how information travels through the brain, it comes here and then it hits the emotional center of your brain is like right in the middle there somewhere. So information literally has to travel through the emotional part of your brain before it hits the back of your brain, which is the logic, where you sort everything out. And so, of course, this happens to all of us every day without being aware of it. But now you are. What?
Amygdala, what's it called back there?
Oh, girl, you got me on that one.
Amygdala.
Amygdala? I know the hypothalamus is the only part of the brain I can remember that part. It's larger in women than men. Woohoo! It's the part that connects the left and right brain. So anyway, what was I saying? So no matter how technical a person is, even if you're talking to the CTO, even if you're selling the most technical software solution out there, even the most analytical person cannot avoid how their brains work, because our brains are actually very primitive. So when we talk about trust and vision, we're talking about connecting with the person on an emotional level so that you have the opportunity to deliver some kind of logic or value, right? So that's where you get to benefits and features and all that. That's all logic. You never get that chance if you haven't hit them on some level emotionally first. So that's why we ask questions, salespeople, right? You ask lots of questions, and if you're listening, which hopefully you are, but most people probably are, instead of thinking of an answer or how am I gonna navigate the sales process, just listen, you'll start to hear the emotions. And any product, anything you sell, no matter what it is, it's always about solving a problem. And that problem has an emotion attached to it. And so our goal as salespeople is to show them through a vision what it will feel like when they solve that problem. And so this is like when you talk about storytelling in sales, it's not necessarily about telling a story like one day I went, and then this happened and this happened. Any story takes you on an emotional journey from one place to another. And so when I think of storytelling in sales, I don't think of it as actually telling stories. But that's what a story does. The whole sales process is taking someone from feeling one thing to feeling something else. And your customers don't know this. They don't know that they make decisions this way. But you as sales professionals, this is our job, to understand human psychology and how people make decisions so that we can help them. So if we come to the table and we're just delivering all of the logic, you could have the best product in the world. It can solve all of their problems. And the mistake that most people make is thinking that that's the most important part of the buying decision, without also addressing the emotion. So when we talk about developing trust is it a feeling or a piece of information? It's a feeling, right? So you can't just walk into a room and say, trust me. Like, that's usually a red flag that you shouldn't trust the person. It's a feeling that you convey between two people, and a vision is showing someone, first connecting with them. I get where you're at. This is so frustrating. May not say, I know you're going to lose your job, but you know that they might lose their job if this gets screwed up. So how you're feeling versus how you will feel when we deliver this. And it's usually an opposite emotion, right? Like everyone has to buy some kind of insurance, whether it's car, life, health, whatever. You don't buy it. Nobody wants to buy it too, so that's a sucky product to sell. But we're gonna buy it. You don't buy insurance because you feel scared. You're not like signing your life insurance contract going, oh God, I hope this pays out. You're not signing it because you're scared. You're coming to the table because you're scared of what might happen if you die and your kids have to live on the street and go into foster care and all that.
Wow, do you feel that emotion?
That's what people feel. That's why life insurance has the biggest buildings and they have the stadiums. So you're scared, but in order to sign on the dotted line, the salesperson has to make you feel what might be an opposite emotion. Throw it out to me. Secure. What's the color of security? Blue. What color most insurance companies use? What do they say is the color suit you should wear when you're in insurance? Blue, right? So marketing knows this. And so you as the salesperson then, when we're talking about conveying emotions, it's your job to represent how they're going to feel when they get that solution. So it might not be safe. Your product might be selling. They might get excited. They might feel hopeful. It depends on what you're selling. You have to dissect that. But that's kind of how I see trust and vision, how we break it down and say this is why that's so important. Because if you don't get that, you can't, they won't even consider the logic or trust that what you're telling them is true anyway.
So it's like is incorporating empathy and curiosity into the conversation early and often, So be mindful of the questions. That what I'm hearing you say is be mindful of the questions that you're asking are about your client. To elicit the thing that is going to resonate that emotion for them, no matter who it is, no matter what level, systems, engineers, everybody operates that way, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you suggest that we build our emotional
before I get into that, what I would love to touch on is what those questions are. Just like one or two great ones.
Yeah.
Let's touch it right now. A great question to ask to get people to start talking about how they feel is, like, the first question you can ask is, so why am I here today? Or, so how can I help you? Instead of having a list of 100, technical requirements, which you'll get to, why am I here today? Oh, tell me more. Oh, so they need to also, you need to get them into that state too, right? Because you don't know what happened before they walked in the room. They could have just came from a party and been feeling great. But let's talk about this technology problem. So asking open-ended questions, and not too many. Let them talk, and you listen, and have them just keep asking, like a coach would, like a therapist would, right? If you've ever been to therapy, they go, tell me more. I hear you. Validate and repeat it back to them, and then continue to get them talking with a genuine interest in understanding their problems. So,
yeah, I like that point of being more coach-like with their questions. So it's more about them, and they get to really, give you a lot of information about how they're feeling and what's important, what's at stake for them.
Yeah.
What's at stake for them? What's at stake for you?
Yeah, and you can't get the honest answers unless you have a genuine relationship with them. So that would always be the first step, whether you're making a phone call or showing up on an appointment. It's always to build rapport. And the way I teach that is to take time to talk about anything but the business that you're there to do. And for some people, that is a huge skill set that they need to learn. I certainly did not know how to talk to people. Obviously now you can tell I can't shut up. But before, I just didn't know how to make small talk or all that stuff. So asking questions, finding, I describe it as we all have like a million different minutes of experience in our life, like millions of moments that we've gone through. And so between you and me, there's got to be something in common, and we already found it, right? Well, now we know both our fathers were entrepreneurs, and we were their assistants. But we have, friends in common and things like that. So there's got to be one thing that you can connect on, and it's like a mystery when you walk in the door. What's that one thing gonna be? And that's like so exciting to me. It's like, what's that thing gonna be? I can't wait, And then you find it, and then you actually then the person feels like they know you. And then you also feel more comfortable because you feel like you know them better. And you take that time. And in the past, the sales that I've made that have stuck the longest, the relationship building part of the sale was the longest part. If we had an hour together, 45 minutes we were talking about whatever me and that person have in common. And then they go, we should probably talk about the insurance now. Oh yeah. And then they go, just tell me which one's the best for me. There's a couple questions. Yeah, okay.
Is this like different for what anybody's been trained? It goes against conventional wisdom. Today though, it's more relevant to really try to get that common thing and still try to make it around the business. Because as reps, we got to go back and put everything in the CRM, and we're all worried about the data points, and Mother of God, Saint Rita, if I don't have these 20 things and put them in there, my manager's going to think I didn't do a good job over there.
Then your manager doesn't know how people make decisions.
There's a lot of people, though, in that.
Oh, no, I totally get it. I mean, it's the kind of thing, like, if you're in a sales environment that is very metrics driven, and they're here's the thing, the metrics will show themselves. Like, you will be the top salesperson in your organization if you understand how to connect with people on an emotional level and understand the buying psychology. So the numbers will show for themselves. A great sales manager is only going to care really about the results, and they'll leave the great salespeople alone who are getting the results and not say, yeah, you did $1 million in revenue, but you only made 20 calls. You know, like, I'd really like to see 200 calls. Like, a good leader's not going to do that.
It just makes me think about the product that you're selling too. So in my experience, when I was selling things like, you need to donate to save the environment, people want to feel really good about that. And so that was one where I didn't spend any time talking about the environment. But for trying to sell people on like a tangible product, that was much less about them liking me and much more about the product itself. So I wonder if that sort of plays into how much time you're actually spending technically.
You want to answer?
Well, I'm new to selling air, and I grew up selling a product. And at the end of the day, it goes back to the same thing as people buying from people. They're buying you. They already made a decision for that product. Can you deliver it for me? Do I trust you? Is there a relationship there? Are you selling through, or are you selling to me? If you're selling to me, I'm the wrong person. So, you know, flipping over to not having something, even in an organization when you were selling ideas, but somebody somewhere rolled a tire out, in my case, and you're working for Goodyear, and flipping over to this other side, the vision I had and my enthusiasm didn't come to life each time until they trusted me, they loved my passion, but I needed to show them the vision. So I said, oh, and the analytics could do this. But until I showed them a dashboard that they said they didn't want, they didn't understand what I was delivering. So there was a number of things in there. It was hard for me to make that transition to the air, but at the end of the day, they're still buying people, and you're selling through them. They made the decision on the product. They're deciding on it.
Yeah, I mean, lots of things we buy are tangible, like cars. You know, like, why a car gets you from point A to point B, right? That's why you buy a car. Anybody else buy it for any other reason?
Segment of the population wise.
Like, a car gets you from. So why is there more than one model style of car? I mean, okay, so you have a pickup and you have a sedan. Now, why is there different colors? Why are there $100,000 cars and $20,000 cars? Why does someone buy a sports car that they could never get up to the speed that it says it could go anyway? Like, the speed limit was 75 is maybe the highest. Anybody see higher than that? Not these parks. They're not going 200 miles an hour, but they buy the car. Why?
How it makes them feel.
How it makes them feel, right? So the marketing company knows that someone buying like a $80,000 sports car, they want to feel, throw them out there for me. Some emotions. Without judging, I mean, powerful, important, successful,
Younger.
young, yeah, hot. They want to feel all those things, and when they sit in the car, guess what the salesperson's job is to do?
Looks good in my car.
Looks good in my car, right? I mean, so this, obviously I don't want to overly do it, but that's why they make you sit in the car. They want you to feel what it's like to sit in the car and drive the car. It's about a feeling. And then here's the other part, is that because it's about a feeling, the crazy thing about emotions is that they come and they go. That's the trick part, right? So when you leave a meeting and the client goes, this sounds awesome, we're so excited, I mean, this is such a great fit, definitely gonna do it, we just gotta do this and that, the other thing, come again. And then you call them, they're like, oh yeah, just give us a couple more days. And then all of a sudden they don't start taking your calls anymore, and you're like, what happened? Like, we were just gonna get married and now you're gone. It's because the emotion is dissipating, and you have to have the emotion involved in order for the sale to close. But you also have to have the logic. I mean, sales manipulators will just use the emotion and get you to buy something, and then you have buyer's remorse the next day because the logic wasn't there at all and it wasn't actually a good fit for them. But as long as your intentions are pure to help people, then you also need to know and cater to how people make decisions. So tangible, like that's an example, a car, it makes you feel something, furniture. What did you sell?
Beer.
That's awesome! I mean, so there's probably like 10 different beers that taste exactly the same. Like, what's the difference between, like, there's definitely people who they go for the IPAs, not because they always taste better, because it makes them feel hip, sophisticated. Yeah, it has something to do with your image. Like, you're not holding a Bud, you're holding an IPA. So, yeah, like there's always that stuff involved, and even if you're selling to bars or
like
people.
in shop, cafe.
Yeah. So the cafe is also doing all this kind of marketing to get the right people in there, and that all has to do with emotions. Like they're if it was successful, they're choosing like who their ideal customer is, how that person wants to feel when they walk in the store, and then all the decor has to match how they want that person to feel. And then their wait staff should also be exuding that same kind of like coolness, which I don't have. It's not in my repertoire. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I still think that when you're selling a product which they don't actually feel or they don't actually get to hold, there's like it's a different selling point.
Yeah, for sure.
Or if you're selling like an experience which they're going to look forward to. I mean, you're selling a dream, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, like if in your situation, a lot of the sales were done. Selling was done before you got involved. So the marketing of the beer companies themselves, we've all seen the commercials. So they're all selling some kind of emotion attached to their beer.
No question.
Yeah.
Was this enterprise beer?
No.
I didn't make the announcement, but we are selling a special IPA, enterprise sales IPA.
I think we need their vision.
Really cool.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Mark. Oh.
So how do you balance the vision and the emotion? So I think every sale is just that. It's a delicate dance, right? Between capitalizing on emotion, but also solidifying it with vision and facts. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I'm not. So as far as facts go, I feel like, at least in my business, very technical sale at the end of the day, even though I talk about selling vapor and vision and everything else, but at the end of the day, there is someone that has a huge checklist, and there's a bunch of boxes that ultimately have to get checked. And at least in our business, there's sort of, we look at 3 buyers. So there's like that checklist person, the spec person, there's the end user, so the product that we're selling, who's actually going to use it, and then there's the money person. And the emotions, I think, is different for all of those, but I feel like the fact, the person that's the spec buyer or whatever, you have to appease that person by checking every box, and there's less emotion in that, and it's sort of just assuming that that's kind of a given, and it is a given for us, but it might not be in all cases. I'm not sure how to connect sort of the vision, I'm not sure how to answer the question, but I would just say on the fact side, there's that person, they're in every one of our sales that we do, and that's one of the 3 people that we have to appease.
I feel like what Jessica was trying to say, it doesn't matter, even the person who has that checklist, you are still trying to connect with them. And it's like if you look at like communication strategies, and what they teach in communication, if you watch TED Talks, there's a formula there that everybody pretty much has, right? They want to first have self-awareness about how they're talking and how they're mirroring. Sometimes you can't mirror when there's a room full of people, but your goal is to have enough self-awareness to be able to get that person comfortable to connect with you, so that when they are going through that checklist, they're going to trust you. So even though they're doing a technical evaluation, they're doing it with everybody. It's up to you to really present yourself in a way and get that saboteur out of your head that's saying, hey man, this guy's technical. How am I going to reach him? Because if you can't, because that might not be your personality. I can't be with system people. I had to sell them. I tried to bring somebody else in, but at the end of the day, I had to get that person to trust that I understood that he had something he had to do, and I was going to respect him, and I was going to hear what his needs are, even though it's a checklist. So it's mitigating risk. It's not perfect. It's not perfect.
Yeah, if you don't have that relationship first, then they get tough with you. They start drilling you, and they start questioning the answers to your questions, the answers to their questions. But like if we're talking about the technical decision maker in the group. Like my experience has always been it takes a little longer to get that commonality and to get them to open up. Like if the emotions may be different in this moment, how does that person need to feel? How does that person need to feel? They also need to feel important and smart and all that. So it's just it's like being a different. Yeah, I'll put on my glasses for that meeting. I feel smarter. So, like, I've always found with really technical people, they usually like Star Wars or something. It's like there's always some kind of clue, and I could, like, if there's a bobblehead on their desk or something, I'll like, oh, you know what? You're gonna hate me. I've never seen any of the Star Wars movies. And then if we have a relationship, they'll be like, what? Let me tell you about it. Or they have some like hidden talent, like they play the guitar, or like they're really into like on the side they like write video games and stuff like that. So there's always more than just the checklist that's on the table. That's the fun part of getting to know people. Look, you have to meet their requirements. That's part of the logical part. But they'll become a salesperson for you. That's the guy you really want on your side, or gal. That's the person you really want on your side, because the rest of the company will be like, well, if Chris thinks he's, right, like, they know that that's the tough person, and if you get that person on your side, and they can sell to the rest of the group as well. So that's like, of all the people, is like the least person you want to avoid developing a relationship with. If it's awkward for them, just be respectful that they're not ready to like dive into revealing who they are. Like people, not everybody's, extroverted or open. So it's a dance, like you said. It's getting to know, like, when is the right time? Okay, we're on the third question. Wow, that's a really cool poster. What is that about? It's trying to get to know them at some point. You had talked about balancing logic and emotion. So I really feel like it's I use like a sandwich method. So whether you're doing a 60-second pitch or a full-length presentation, sandwiching logic between emotion. It's kind of like how when you're supposed to give negative feedback, you sandwich it with two positives, and then you give the negative in the middle, so it's not so harsh. But the same thing with emotion and logic. So if I were to break down the sales process, the emotion is in the building the relationship, asking the questions, and pre-closing. And then the presentation itself is the logic part of it, where you're showing them, and maybe if they're taking a test drive or whatever, and then closing the sale, and then you're what I call crystallizing. Some people call it cementing, but that sounds very like mafioso. So I call it crystallizing, which is you make the sale as hard as diamonds, and then you ask for referrals. So those last two steps are also very emotionally driven, like asking them to repeat back to you, why'd you buy this product? And then asking if they would recommend it to other people. So you're ending with an emotional state instead of just throwing up, because you wouldn't need salespeople if it was all logic. And just give them a white paper. Here you go. Give me write a check.
What? I want to just dig in on that. There's going to be situations where you run into someone, no matter how hard you try, you cannot build rapport.
Yeah.
And I'm sure both of you have experienced that in your selling. What have you tried, or what have you employed to maybe try and find a connection, right? And try to tap into that emotional wellspring?
Well, I mentioned one, like looking for clues in their office.
But even so, there's sometimes people are just, they're going to put you in the logic bucket.
Yeah, and that's the most fun. That's the most challenging, because those are, like I said, those are the people where it's most important to have that relationship. So you have to, but you also can't push it, because then they'll feel uncomfortable. So it always comes down to asking questions. I mean, there's no other way, but it's like drawing upon what questions am I going to ask them. You could do research ahead of time. Find out their Twitter profiles and things like that, and if you have a school in common or whatever. I hate sports, so I can throw that out the window. It's not something I'm going to end up talking about. But it could be, something that you find that they're passionate about.
It's actually a really good point when you mentioned questions, because we had a session in New York last month, and one of the findings, this was basically from psychology studies, that when you're the one who's asking more questions, you actually build more influence. So I think that is important, thinking to yourself, can I ask more questions?
Yeah, so like they say, sales is really about listening. And that's also one of those things that's also easy to say and more difficult to do, because we have so much that we want to get across. But if you ask the right questions, you can actually get the client to say all those things that you wanted to say, and you think they're going to trust you or themselves more when they deliver that.
I have to add something here, because what we're really noticing about Jessica is that she's able to be courageous in the face of a hard question. She doesn't get weighed down, right? She said it. This is going to be fun. And if we open our mind to that, I know it sounds really corny, but it's a self-management kind of process with yourself to say, oh, I just got a hard ball, right? I'm either going to get hit with that pitch, or I'm going to find a way to sit with it and let that person be, who they are, and I can't get uncomfortable. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that you look at that as an opportunity to still connect, and that's about courageousness. That's about really being able to stay in the moment with someone and be more coach-like. And that, I think, is a competency that salespeople are not taught to build within themselves.
Just because someone has the title of CEO, doesn't mean you should be intimidated by them. I mean, we all go to the bathroom. We all have issues, and we all have. I mean, that's why building a relationship is so important, because it's important for you, because when you get to know the person, then you feel more relaxed too, and now you can actually help them and be in a place of service, instead of thinking like, oh gosh, this person's so much smarter than me, I could never answer these questions.
Right.
I would suggest there's many times that person's trying to test you, and with their intimidating attitude, and if you're not faltering in front of them, you are earning their respect and their trust, and they will sometimes open up after they've given you that stiff upper lip, and you just hang in there. is definitely the key.
Definitely, that's a great point.
Can I just say something? Oh, good.
No, go ahead.
So, we work with a lot of like heads of engineering, CTOs, and they're like usually the person that has the checklist. So definitely I've met a lot of people that are very stiff, cold. They just want to make sure that you check all the boxes. And I just have one experience that I remember, who was a person who's now kind of a friend and dare I say peer, but and people I feel like people always ultimately want to do business with their peers. I feel like it's like it's so much easier when I think people feel like they're on a peer level, and it doesn't matter if the person has a C-level title or not. You can be anyone's peer. It really doesn't matter. It's like when people go to places that aren't work, whether it's religion or there's so many things in life where like none of that hierarchy actually matters. So the peer side of it is so important. But anyway, I've dealt with a lot of really hard people that. And even in some times when I'm trying to just say, how are you guys doing, whatever, the person's like, I'll be honest, I'm not really one for small talk. It's like, how do I, and if they're not, someone that, you immediately identify as a peer, it gets even harder. What I've found is that humor can help, and that's if you can pull it off, even for people that aren't really your peers. And so for this person in particular, on the second call that I had with them, I said something like, well, I know Brian is not really into small talk, so we better get right into it. And the CFO on their side actually started laughing. And like that moment was kind of like loosening up for this person, and we're friends. But you just have to break it down, be respectful, and make sure you check those boxes and the things that they want to get out of the relationship.
So I'm going to ask you, what was he really saying when he said, I'm not into small talk?
That's a great question.
What was the subtext?
Shut up. I don't know. I'm not sure.
He was guarding something.
I think it was like, don't be a sales guy. Something like that,
He's saying, I've been manipulated before, I've made the wrong decision before, and I'm not going to let a salesperson swindle me again. So yeah, that's what they're really saying is like, I'm scared I'm going to make a bad decision. Ultimately, every buyer feels that on some level. It's not that they're scared to make a decision, they're scared to make the wrong decision. And how much is at stake? Are they going to lose their job? And so, like, if it's someone who just wants to get the boxes checked, then the emotion there is to make them feel safe and secure that they're not going to lose their job. You're not going to go in and be like, hey, let's go get a beer. Like, they don't need to feel excited or like they want to have fun. They want to feel safe and secure that when they check off these boxes, they're not going to lose their job.
I love this conversation.
I was just going to ask sort of a leading question or make a statement, I guess. Don't you think that if you find someone who really, really just does not want to get to know you, is not interested in small talk at all, and you're just the person who comes in 10 minutes, you schedule a half hour, you're out the door in 15 minutes, sometimes they can be so respectful, like they can be so happy that you're not wasting a second of their time, and to them that is an emotional connection. And I only say that because I know that happened to me. I had a guy that I used to work with, we weren't even born in the same country, let alone the same generation, we barely had anything in common, and but just the fact that he did slam the door in my face every time I came around, was just in and out, and on the way, like he eventually really liked me. But I wouldn't say there was a strong emotional connection, or really that I would say, oh yeah, I built a relationship with him. I just gave him exactly what he wanted, So, which was clear, concise, in and out, sign the check, whatever.
What were you selling?
I wasn't selling anything. I was actually just working as a consultant. Upselling, I guess, but
okay.
But he was just one of those people who just, as a consultant. I used to be a consultant with one of the big four, and you're generally two in a box with someone, and you're supposed to build a rapport in a relationship and have a very strong connection. And he was just someone who was known very much as someone very cantankerous and someone who didn't really want to work with other people, and the fact that I got him to work with me, albeit in short little stints here and there.
It's influence. You influence them somehow.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the saying of like, when someone's sold, they're sold. Like, don't continue to sell them.
Yeah.
And like, you may have walked in the door and they were already sold. They already knew they were going to buy. And so you don't and it can happen at any point in the sales process. You need to raise your awareness as a salesperson. Like 10% into your presentation, they were sold. You need to be able to like sense that feedback and not do the rest of the 90% of the presentation to keep selling them on something. You need to go to the close. Close them when they're ready to buy, because then you'll end up unselling them.
Right. Oh wow, so many hands.
When you're selling vision and trust, there's almost inherently a lot of uncertainty. How do you manage expectations for potential bumps on the road? As in, it may not work out perfectly.
Is that, you're saying after the close, maintenance and support ultimately, or?
During the close, assuming, or is it part of the close, I suppose? And maybe you just answered that it's not, it's really post-close.
Well, I mean, certainly in the sales process, I've had, things go wrong. I've definitely had, like, my attorneys scare people out of the room. When we're, like, literally signing the documents, it's like, we're about to.
Everything can go wrong.
So you have to maintain and support that. But in services, so much of the, if you look at it as commission, so much of the commission should sort of be attributed to the maintenance and support of making sure that the client's happy long term, because you want them to ultimately buy again. And I wish I could say I've had every project go swimmingly, and I think you have to handle yourself with grace when things don't go right. And it's funny, I've had 3 friends in the last year all have their businesses fail, and when I hear that, I'm sure they're like swamped and everything else, but I always like remember to like send them a small note, because I remember when I was struggling with my company, like the thing that I was thinking about the most was, how do I like keep my head up and walk around with, and the key to that is like walking out the door with grace. So it's hard to do, but it's important. So, and because the community is small, and no matter what, you're going to see the same people over and over again, and it takes a whole lifetime to build a reputation. It only takes a second to lose it. So I think the maintenance and support is key.
So I used to sell health insurance, and sometimes claims wouldn't get paid. And that's the reality of health insurance. Not everything's going to be approved, and not everything's going to get paid. Not everything's covered under the contract, even if you think it should be. So that's where the honesty and integrity of sales come in. I mean, you're not going to oversell it. Like if I was selling insurance, I can't go in and say we're going to cover everything, and that's what makes us the best. We're not going to, we're going to prove everything, and you'll never have to worry about, a claim not going through. So it's about setting expectations, but also selling them on it's not whether things will go wrong. They will go wrong. It's life. But what is it going to be like when they do go wrong? So here, this is what happens. I wish I could say this thing never breaks, but it breaks. And this is what happens when it does. And this is how you can expect me to be involved, and this is how you can expect the whole team. And I would do that do that in the presentation, like as you're closing out the presentation before you close them. You don't want them to say yes and then say, oh, by the way, it breaks. I didn't mention that. Because no surprises. That's a general rule, is like no surprises before, during, or after the sale.
Chris, with technology, some of your buyers are pretty much immature because they've never bought it before, in other words. So how do you deal, I've been around with a lot of technology firms where when it's new, they don't know how to implement, so they don't know sometimes how to buy, and sometimes, I don't know if it's nervousness, frustrated, scared. How do you get them to understand what they're trying to do when they don't even know what they're trying to do?
As a salesperson, I look at part of my job as a strategist and an educator. So I think, you have to make a call, and I'd say we do in the first meeting to some extent. Do we want to educate this person, these people, and is it going to be worth the exercise? Because some people that just don't have the experience are not going to be good buyers, and especially as the price tags get bigger, the lack of experience sometimes can be a problem. But that comes down to the trust thing. So we need to qualify them and make sure that we trust them just as much as they're trying to qualify us and making sure that we're trusted. From a perspective, I mean, I'd say it's a game day call almost every time, and we've certainly encountered those situations. A lot of people that have wealthy friends or family, and have a young person in the family or whatever, and they want to basically move the remaining college funds into their first business. I would say we run more often than not when that happens, but there are similar sort of situations where you have a first-time buyer that has come upon a bunch of money, and some of them we work with and educate along the way, and they appreciate that education, and I hope that they're lifelong clients, because that's part of why we're in services, is because we want to build relationships and we want to work with people for a very long time.
What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting to hire salespeople in an organization?
So one thing that I'm doing recently is I have outside advisors that have hired lots more salespeople than me, helping me hire salespeople. So I haven't hired enough salespeople in my career to say that I don't feel like I'm super confident on my own. But I'll yield to others.
I would say primarily the biggest mistake that I see is people hiring based off of sales experience or experience in the industry that they're selling, and forgetting that sales is a relationship business, especially when you get into enterprise sales and high ticket items. So focusing more on that person's ability to develop a relationship and tell a story, and then, but then knowing that you need to be able to provide them the skill set for the sales, so that they can go out armed with what they need to do, the things they need to do, and the scripts that they need to say to get the sales. That's like primarily what I would look into, and then something to be aware of is that most salespeople are great at presenting, and so in an interview they're presenting themselves, and a lot of employers that I see, when they look back at the mistakes, they said the person sold themselves really great, but when they got into the job they didn't do the work. Well, we all know here that the actual presentation part of the sale is one part of a very long sales process. So not just looking at how the person presents himself in the interview, but paying attention to every single detail, from the emails that they send you, how they conduct themselves over email, how they conduct themselves over the phone, are there spelling mistakes, are they, I always put them in a group situation so I could see how they interact with other people and how they listen to other people. When someone's talking, are they looking at their watch, or are they listening to the person? This tells me a lot about how they're going to be out in the field with my clients.
I have a add-on to that from my recruiting life. Dealing with search committees, I mean, I really feel like there's 3 or 4 key competencies that they're looking for, which is great interpersonal skills, the ability to communicate ideas and their thoughts, and how you get to that is through the interview process, really asking a lot of questions about, give me an example of how you manage your territory. Give me an example when you were in a conversation with a client from lead to got into the first or second stage, and then how did you manage the person through the sales process? I want to know if they pulled in other resources. How do you lean into your executive team? How do you know when is the right time to bring somebody in to help you with the sale? There's a lot of questions that I've seen senior level sales people from like Oracle and some of these, places that, even Mark worked on, the ERP, they really drill down on the salesperson's ability to communicate, and how they find that out is to tell me how you've been successful in your best deals, in your worst deals, and how they're talking and expressing that. How do you manage your territory? If they can't tell you how they do their business plan,
Well, if you actually have an experienced person in front of you, like, also another great question you can ask is, what are your numbers?
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, it seems simple, but a lot of people don't know what their closing ratios are, or like how many calls they have to make to get an appointment, or how many, right? So like a great salesperson, a professional, is going to know their numbers so that they can improve their numbers.
Yes.
But a lot of people can't answer that question, so it's like an easy
Yeah,
differentiator.
That's true too. That's true.
They might lie about the numbers, but.
First I have a comment about your question. Something in my experience that's been tremendously overrated is a salesperson's boldness. That's never worth as much as you think it is. But my question for you two is, in an enterprise sale, product or domain expertise is really important, right? And I've had experiences both converting someone who's a technical or operational person and bringing them into a sales role, or bringing in someone who's a pure salesperson and asking them to learn my product. Do you have an opinion about what's a more successful approach?
I wouldn't say I've done enough to answer your question. I mean, I'm definitely more the technical, myself personally, more the technical person that, you know, learned sales. I just don't have enough experience. I'll pass.
So you do, because I was just telling you in there that the model that you use is the one that I usually think works best, which is having the frontline salespeople and then the sales engineers behind them who are the product experts. They know the answer to every question. And the salespeople are more about opening doors and developing relationships, understanding the dynamic of the organization and who's involved. They have to have some level of, you have to train them, even if they didn't have any technical experience, you could probably train them on, in a few days, and what they need to know to get to the point where a sales engineer needs to come in to support them. So, I mean, of all the possible information that you could give the client about what your product does, even when they make the decision, they probably don't even get to half of that. But in order to make an appointment with them, you probably only need, 5 to 10%. It's like that 80-20 rule and the tip of the iceberg. You only need this much information to get in the door. So teach your salespeople that much that they need to communicate. And then when it does get into, don't pretend that you know everything. The worst thing, you don't lie and say you are the technical expert. But I'm going to bring in Chris when that time comes, and he's going to be able to answer all those questions for you. Yeah, you don't want to lie about your expertise.
Yeah, and just to add, so for myself personally, I like my opinion, just without having the operating experience, is that, and from what I've learned about sales, and I would say just from the sales evolution side of things, like you learn how to sell widgets, you don't really learn how to sell software. So taking that sort of the next step, and really what my opinion is, like Jessica said, and how I'm operating now, I'm willing to train people the subject matter expertise, and really want people that are going to be effective salespeople. I'll let you know in a few years.
I'll take one more question from the group.
Okay, mine kind of goes off of that. I hired 2 very green individuals to be on my team with no self-experience, straight out of college, but that were super hungry and passionate to be successful. But something I'm struggling with, and this is such a non-question, but I want everyone's input, is do you think that you could teach empathy in the matter that they're selling? Because they have empathy for other people, and they have empathy for the team and for the organization. When they're on the phone, this individual, he doesn't sound like he cares, and he wants to, and he says that he wants to, but he's like, how do I care that their workforce management is inefficient? How do I care that they're not complying with the LSA? I'm like, how do you not care? It's so natural in me. So I didn't know if, and you're nodding yes, that's reassuring. It's difficult to teach empathy, and I'm not sure how to do it myself, because I just naturally care when an HR director is saying, like, I'm gonna lose my job, or a CPA is saying, our penalty from the IRS is gonna shut us down. So I'm going to let them answer because they're a guest. We can. I love that you're nodding with them. No, it's reassuring. You can teach empathy. It takes a while, but it's.
My answer will be quick.
Okay.
I think part of it is probably genetic. I think, like, as far as like teaching it, I think a lot of people will know that you should be listening more than you're talking, and just cannot do it. Like, no matter how much you sort of tell them, right? So I almost feel like part of empathy is also just listening, and some people literally just can't listen. So I've taken it to believe that some people just have sort of this genetic side of it where they literally just can't have any sort of empathy. And if you ask my wife, she would say I have none. So we'll ask Jessica.
I have 30 days.
So for him to say that you can't teach empathy, that's why, because he doesn't have any.
I didn't say it in my intro, but like I've interviewed thousands of salespeople and trained hundreds of them, and so I've definitely seen this more than once. So I'll give an example. There was one woman I was working with. She was on my team, and she was struggling. And she did well in the beginning, and then she was in a slump. And so, well, let me go out with you and see if we can like figure this out. And we're right in front of the client's door. It's like a corporate client, and we're like literally walking down the hall to the person's office that we're going to. And she goes, I better make this sale. I mean, I haven't made the last 3 sales, and if I don't hit my quota this month, I am telling you, Jessica, this is just not me. And I go, whoa, hold it right there. If your thoughts right before you walk into that room is how you need to make the sale, and you need to make money, and you need to pay your bills, and whatever other crap you've got on your back that day, and you walk in the door and you go, hey, Chris, nice to meet you. You know, you're shaking their hand really hard. There's no way the person's not going to smell that on you, that clearly your intention walking into that room is to make a sale and to make money at all costs. And the first question they ask when you walk in the room is, why is this person here? Is this person here to help me? Is this person here to make a sale? And if the answer is not to help me, sorry, like you have a really like high hill to climb. So, but can you turn it around? Yes, you can turn it around by making them aware of the times when they're doing it. Sometimes in the beginning, it's about what's in it for them. Like, guess what? If you learn empathy, you'll make more sales and you'll make more money. That's what you told me you wanted when you came to our company, right? So now it's my job to teach you how to do that. So yes, it's definitely possible if they want the outcome at the end. And it has, obviously, empathy has to be genuine. Icky, sleazy, and just plain annoying is my tagline. And sometimes, and maybe it's because they're younger too. I mean, that could have something to do with it, like their understanding of people in the world. So this, like one of my questions that you were going to ask me, which you didn't, is how do you increase your emotional intelligence? So like, here's some things that you could take back to them. I always feel like the best way you can increase your own emotional intelligence is to understand yourself. So like a lot of sales books might have you like go out and observe people and observe, how people are, their body, what's that called? Body language, all that stuff, right? And what's it called? The neuro-linguistic programming, all that stuff is about the other person. But I say the best way to learn about people is to learn about yourself. Like there's a lot about yourself you don't know yet. And so going on a personal development journey, like maybe sneak some books in there, like sneak some like Tony Robbins in there, something's going to connect. Something somewhere is going to connect for them, or they'll start learning like there's so much about myself I don't know yet. And so then having like a very heightened self-awareness. Understanding that some people say the definition of enlightenment is knowing what you're doing, when you're doing it, and why you're doing it. Oh, I got that flipped. Knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, while you're doing it. And the while you're doing it is like the penultimate. Because it's one thing to look back and go, why did I do that? Okay, yeah, and analyze, and that's like therapy. But then to be able to, in the moment, say, why are my feet pointing at each other right now? What does that say? My feet are pointing at you, right? Because I'm talking at you. I know that. But am I crossing my arms? It's not about as the client, because like mirroring techniques are about mirroring your client so you can, show them that you're empathizing with them. I say the client is a mirror of you. If you're not smiling, your customer's not going to be smiling. If you're bored, your customers are going to be bored. So use your customers as a mirror. Instead of saying, that guy doesn't get, he just doesn't get it, he's dumb. He just, you know, instead of blaming them for not buying the product, look at like how did I affect the situation, and look at them as a mirror to you. And then that makes every sales situation a personal development opportunity.
The engineer and the actor, I gave a very unhopeful answer. That takes genetic defect, and this was full of hope, and it's great.
We're selling over here.
Well, I think anybody who wants to learn sales, anybody who
tomorrow would be like, one person told me, like, sorry, you're out of here. The other person was like, maybe there's a chance. Figure out more about yourself.
One of the first thing you always have to do with coaching anyone, especially in sales, is to get to understand what they want.
Yes.
In their life, not about their quota or how much money they want to make. What are they going to do with that money? Because then when it comes to a situation like this where you do have to coach them, you already had a conversation about what they want, and you made a pact together. I'm going to help you get there. So is it okay that when I see you doing something that you could possibly change to improve, is it okay if I call you out on it? And they're going to say yes. And then when it's time to call them out on it, you already have that relationship developed so that you can say, remember when we talked about how I was going to call you out on things? Is it okay if I call you out on something right now? And they know that you're doing it to help them get to a place they want to be, and not just so you make your numbers as a sales manager.
I would argue that it can't be about money, ever. You gotta get to their leaderships, their stake. Their stake in it is not just the end goal of the money.
Right.
It
But
is-
what do
it
they
is
want in
about
their
what
life?
they want.
And how is
That's
this
right.
job going to get them to
That's
what
right.
they want in life?
That's right. And I could talk about this, and obviously everybody wants to keep talking about this, but we have to wrap up. So I want to thank you so much for your time.